Hey everyone, Stacks here, checking out Xmen number 2, Jonathan Hickman, Francis Leinil U, and I'm checking this out because I put a poll up on my my YouTube community page, and this is what you guys voted for to check out first, pretty overwhelmingly, over Fallen Angels. I'll check out Fallen Angels next, and then I will check out Guardians of the Galaxy. At least that's my plan for the week. I appreciate everyone who took the time to vote. If you are not subscribed, make sure you do that. That way I'm going to start doing that every Wednesday. So when the new books come out that I'm going to pick up, you can vote, see which video comes out first, guys. And if you hit that bell so you get notifications, you'll get it every time. Anyways, by popular demand, Xmen number 2 by Jonathan Hickman. Here we go. This book does happen after X-Force number 1 and New Mutant. So if you haven't checked those out, go check my videos out for those. I'll leave the links right here, and you can go check those out. And because a lot of this other stuff isn't going to it'll make sense, but it really helps with the world building on everything that's going on Krakoa and with the world of the mutants right now. Anyways, spoilers ahead, you've been warned. The book starts at the Summers house where Cyclops walks in, says, "Hey kids, what's going on? A lot happened yesterday," and they're talking specifically about the assassination of Professor X. But on top of all that, just about 100 miles south of Krakoa, another island just suddenly appeared. Well, when it did, Krakoa decided it's en route. It starts making a beeline directly for this other island. Now, they've had a couple of other mutants, North Star and Aurora, go take a flight over it and just do a quick recon. And this place is crawling with giant beasts from the other world. So Cyclops tells his son and daughter, "So I'm headed on a recon mission. Who wants to go with their old man to beat up some monsters?" Now, typically this would be as easy as asking Cypher, "Hey, ask Krakoa, why is he heading to this new island?" Well, in New Mutants, Cypher's taken off with the rest of the New Mutants to Shi'ar space. And we also find out through the dialogue here that Cyclops is the one that okayed this little jaunt through the universe. And as they get closer to their destination, Cable's doing a rundown of everything he's brought equipment-wise, and he realizes real quick, once they see this island, he should have brought a bigger gun. Because as they see the island, they see this giant volcano with smoke, fire, tentacles all coming out of it, and yeah, he probably should have brought a bigger gun. Later, once they landed, which Cable's actually throwing props to Cyclops, saying that was actually an impressive landing. He's like, "Look, I've got more time in a cockpit than I do in therapy," and that's saying something because I have put in the work there, trust me. Cyclops also quickly points to Rachel and says, "Hey, look, if you don't mind, scan." So she scans psychically and says, "Look, there's a bunch of low intelligence wildlife, but there's something a little bit higher up the food chain. I don't know what it is right now, but it feels human-ish." And I'll give you one guess where it's at as they look at the giant tentacle spewing volcano. A couple hours later, they're still trying to cut through this brush and make it to the volcano. And it's finally at the point where Scott's had enough, and he says, "Hey, look, everybody back behind me. I wanted to be a little bit more patient and nuanced about this, but we got to go." And he just cuts away through the underbrush with his optic beams. And once the path is cleared away, a black rhino-looking thing actually kind of wanders into the path. They quickly identify that it's not a threat. However, the giant tentacle monster that looks like a Venus flytrap that pops up behind it, definitely a threat. I mean, especially after they sit there and watch that thing eat an entire rhino wildebeest just right in front of them. Plus, it's always a good rule that if something comes at you with tentacles, you shoot it. So that's exactly what they do. They open fire. From there, we jump to what looks like it's inside the volcano, something called the Arak Mall. And you have this being telling what appears to be her son that, "Look, war is all you ever know, but this new land, this soft place, it's going to offer you trials. So go and make me proud." And this child is like, "No, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave." But he has his final marching orders. "The only wisdom I can offer you is this: find him, follow him. So make me proud, son. Do not fail." And at this point, you have a very effective use by Jonathan Hickman of one of his white pages talking about summoners. And that's what these individuals are called. They're called summoners. And it also breaks down what they are, who they are, and a little bit of their current plight. And what we find out is they can actually bridge the chasm between the lost island of Krakoa and the land beyond the wild borders of Otherworld. Something else we find out is they're able to control the dark beasts, and it says that serve the adversaries of Arakko. You also get the breakdown of like the skill levels of the different summoners: the summoner minor, summoner adept, and a high summoner, all of which can basically summon a different size force to them. A more high summoner obviously being able to summon a much more powerful force than a summoner minor. Well, with that, things get real because the summoner goes and meets these three individuals, of the Summers family, out in a field and tries to speak to them. They very quickly experience a language barrier. The mutants sound like grunts and moans to the summoner, and the summoner sounds like he's singing, but they can't understand it. So, well, as a show of goodwill, Cable decides he would pull something out of his pocket and give it to him as a gift. Well, we all did dumb things as teenagers, and this is one of those moments for Cable, because what he gave him was a thermal grenade. And not knowing what it is, the summoner clicks the little button on it because it's shiny. Well, of course, that leads to disastrous consequences as this grenade explodes and blows everyone all over the place. Well, as the Summers family picks themselves off the ground, they realize real quick that ain't the end of it, as the summoner just strolls out of the flames and in his own language is saying, "You have erred greatly. Can't you see what I am? I am a summoner." And with that, he summons 3 high beasts that immediately start attacking the X-Men. Well, it's during this pretty intense fight that Scott gets the idea of downloading Krakoan language into the summoner. Well, Rachel quickly takes care of that, and once they do, they begin to actually communicate about this. And it manages to pretty quickly diffuse the situation as Cable's sitting there wrapped up in these tentacles, and he's like, "Look, it wasn't my fault. I gave you a gift. You weren't supposed to turn it on." Well, at this point, Scott chimes in and says, "Look, we don't want to fight you. We simply want to know why the island we're from, Krakoa, is headed to the island, your island, and if it's going to be a problem." And the summoner looks at him and cocks his head and says, "Do you love someone?" And it's funny because it's Cyclops. And it's like, look, complicated question. But for the sake of expediency, let's just say yes. I love a single someone. And then the summoner adds, "And you want to be with them?" And Cyclops is like, "Yeah, of course." And the summoner just points and says, "Then you understand. Watch as Krakoa, the island, comes up and gently crashes into the other island, and the vines and everything from the island reach out and connects the island together." And in a pretty funny moment, they're like, "Are the islands, are they?" And Cyclops is kind of like, I honestly don't want to know. But then he takes his hand and puts him over Cable's eyes like he's shielding him from a scene in a movie that he's like too young to watch or something. And Cable starts to ask, what the? And he's like, "Well, son, I think that's how all my best mistakes have happened." The summoner looks up and says, "Now the two are one, as they should be, as they always were." And he just starts walking away, and everybody's like, "Hey, where are you going? What happens now?" He's like, "I'm not going anywhere, because now I live here, and I live here because he lives here." From there, we get another map showing Krakoa, and it's with they're calling this Iraq Coral. And then you also have a shot of the Hellfire Bay, if you will, which consists of the Red Keep, Blackstone, and the White Palace. And all of that is interesting, but not near as interesting as what happens next, because you have the island and you have the summoner standing out in the woods when suddenly Apocalypse approaches. And as he steps out, he said, "We have never met, but I would recognize your seed anywhere. Did you run away, or were you sent?" And the summoner replies, "I wanted to stay. I would have stayed." And Apocalypse is like, "Of course you would have. How would you not?" And then the summoner again says, "The enemy has come, and though the walls hold, and for now your children hold the point, soon Araco will fall." And Apocalypse looks down on him and says, "And to which of my children is mother to you?" And he looks up proudly, the summoner does, and says, "War." And Apocalypse reaches out to him and says, "Yes, I can see that now. You have it in you." And the summoners, "Will you save us? Can you save us?" And Apocalypse replies, "I can, I will, for I mean to save all of my children, those of Krakoa and those of Rako." And Apocalypse embraces him, and it's just like, dude, what just happened? And the unencrypted message for the next issue is Horde Culture, so be interested to see what that's all about. Alright, so getting into the breakdown of this whole issue. I did like the interaction between Scott and his kids. The way he talked with them, the way he discussed things. There's a couple different pieces of dialogue throughout it that I skipped to to avoid the copyright gods raining down fire upon me for the video. But the interaction between them is really good, and it's a guy trying to relate to these kids that he hasn't had a relationship in the past. So some people will say it's a little bit out of character for Cyclops, but he hasn't had this before. He hasn't had the security of Krakoa, and he hasn't had his kids with him the whole time. So I enjoy the Summers family trying to connect in that way. I'm really liking what they're doing with Apocalypse and fleshing out his backstory, not just some maniac, who is completely Darwinian, survival of the fittest, but going into his background and figuring out how his past, how it ties to Krakoa and Arakoa, and going from there. I'm really interested to see where they go with this. I think the Summoner stuff is really, really cool, and it's really going to be interesting to see if this has a tie-in to the Excalibur books as well. Because over there with Captain Britain, he's dealing directly with a portal to the other world. So just finishing up and rounding out the characterization piece of it, the one character in this that does come off as awkward, which I guess as a high school teenage kid, it's not too surprising, but is Cable. His jokes fall flat. He comes off as really, really kind of just awkward. Most of his humor, I personally didn't enjoy. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good either. As far as the art goes, I think Leinil Francis Yu's a lot better when he's drawing the scenes from the X-Men #1 with the spaceship where they were loading the caskets and firing the coffins off into space from the attack that the X-Men had done on the Orcus base. That seemed a lot better, looked a lot better than here. Even in the first one, though, I thought Cyclops' head and jaw sometimes ended up looking all cattywampus, but I thought the Summoner looked really dope, and so, I did like that. So as far as recommendations, yeah, definitely go pick up X-Men #2. Jonathan Hickman, Francis Leinil Yu, knock it out of the park. It's a good book. Going to be really interesting to see where it is going forward. Excalibur #1 next week, or I'm sorry, Excalibur #2 next week, and Marauders #2. So we'll have to check out both of those. And of course, Wednesday afternoon, I'll kick out the vote for that. See which book goes first as far as me knocking out the video. So I plan on knocking out Fallen Angels #1 and Guardians of the Galaxy #11 this week. And I'm probably going to pick up Jedi Fallen Order and do some streaming of that. So make sure you're subscribed and leave a like, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Do you like where they're going with Apocalypse on this, or are you kind of against it? Are you going back to he's a genocidal maniac and he needs to stay that way? Let me know down in the comments, guys. I appreciate you watching. That's all I got. Real Comic Stacks out.